Hello, my name is Casey Bray, and this is my history exploration project. My final project. I decided to take a visit to the Ryman Auditorium, and I can say it was definitely worth the time. It's a little bit on the expensive side for what it is. It was very historic though, and definitely worth a good walk through and learning a little bit more about our state. Overall, I want to get into the history and tell you about it, and also tell you about the importance that the Ryman has impacted on Tennessee. In a time of 130 years, the Ryman Auditorium has served as a staple in Tennessee history. It has brought musicians and entertainers to populate the area for over a century. Without it, would Nashville be what it is today? And that honestly is a great question, because without it, probably not. Yes, you have the honky tonks, you have all of Broadway and the birth of country music, but in reality, the Ryman is what got the birth and the mother church of country music. It sits straight downtown in the midst of it all. Literally bars on each side, but shopping centers. I mean, it's a huge center to Nashville, and I really felt like the Ryman kind of was everything built around the Ryman, because that's where it was at. That is where you got most of the revenue coming in, was to see the entertainers or whoever came to the Ryman, whether it be political or comedy or music. I mean, the Ryman brought in all kinds of people. It began in the 1800s, so this building has been a staple of the state of Tennessee, and now the heart of Music City. The building allowed everyone to have the soul of Nashville and enjoy the entertainment and revenue that it brought. From the start of it being a church to now being an auditorium for comics, musicians, magicians, and entertainers alike, having something for everyone. For the home, it was the home of the Grand Ole Opry for many years. So many say that is what the Ryman's known for. Yes, but that's not how it started. It actually all started from a wealthy businessman who decided to have more of a party type of style life than would say most people nowadays. He actually was in business with the booze, with the gambling. He was all in those backwoods type of operations. His name was Thomas Ryman. Thomas Ryman was a very wealthy businessman, and he was actually the owner of a fleet of steamships. So he was trying to get more of that type of business to the area. Well, one thing that was battling him was this church that came to town and was having a revival. And so it kind of shut down Thomas that night, and he's like, I'm ready to go see what this is about. Like, why is these people stepping on our toes? This is our business, our town. So when Thomas went, he, which was 1885, May 10th, he decided to go see what it was about. He had a quarrel with the Reverend there, but actually listening to the message and coming to a point, as I call the coming to Jesus moment, Thomas was actually set on the righteous path and no longer done dwellings and business with more of the darker side of things, the booze and the partying. And he actually, after having turned his life around and giving it to God, he actually decided, I'm going to build these people a building. I want them to be able to assemble together and worship and be a part of something bigger. So he actually funded for the building to hold the event and gathering. Thus, that was the beginning of the Ryman, but that at that time was not called the Ryman. It was actually called the Union Gospel Tabernacle. So I actually got this picture outside of Nashville, outside of the Ryman. It is a plaque, one of the historical plaques, telling the whole history right here. Heard Reverend Sam P. Jones speak at a tent revival in 1885. Ryman conditioned architect Hugh C. Thompson to build the Gothic Revival Church, which quickly became a secular and religious place for gatherings. 7 years later and $1,000 later, the tabernacle was built. Ryman said, "I believe for every dollar spent in this tabernacle, there will be $10 less spent in the future on court trials. This tabernacle is the best investment the city of Nashville ever made." So when he is saying that, he's saying that this money is going to go somewhere. Yes, I'm putting the money in now, but overall, what is it in this big thing we call Earth that $10 keeping someone out of jail for leading them to Christ instead of the darker path I've been saying, the booze, keeping them out of jail, He felt like his money was well spent. Thomas Ryman ended up passing away in 1904. Then the Reverend and Thomas's, and where Thomas was being memorialized, they actually unofficially named the auditorium the Ryman. Besides music, the Ryman hosted a wide variety of events, including lectures by President Theodore Roosevelt, President Taft, suffragist speakers, civil rights speakers like MLK and Booker T, and it broadened the appeal and allowed public and political speakers to speak a lot to a major crowd versus being out on the street and you have all these outside factors coming in. There wasn't the scaredness, and it was just more of a unity of people getting together. I have here a picture of, they actually have a display case of different flyers and stuff of the time period, and this one actually states, "Mass meeting tonight, Ryman Auditorium, 5 o'clock, to save the South." And it has everybody invited. So this is one of the civil rights, one of the suffragist type posters that would have been of that time period, and what actually brought more people in to hear what they were talking about. There was a place that they could go and get out of the weather or whatever they needed for that, but it was what they needed at the time. So the Ryman started to kind of take off. It was no longer just religious uses. It was, as I said, political speakers, music, all kinds of stuff. And that was all because of a lady that we know as Elsie Neff, but really her name is Tallulah C. Neff. She was formerly known as Lula Clay. She spent her childhood in Johnson City, Tennessee, and at age 17, she married Charles Neff, who died a few years later. At 25, she was a widow raising an infant daughter, but she also was in business school. So 3 days after graduation, she found a job as a stenographer at a local talent agency. Over time, she got promoted, and from then on, and followed it, and she moved on to different opportunities. At age 39, she was needed as the agency operator. Neff was familiar with the Ryman. She knew it was mostly a religious venue, but recognized it had potential entertainment uses. At the time, it was in the time of where women didn't really have a lot to say about a lot of things. They didn't get to, because suffragist movement hadn't really moved into where women had a lot of power of anything. But she pretty much made it what it is today. Without her, we probably wouldn't have the historical type of place that the Ryman after where she was working at dissolved, she became an independent agent. She took a risk, and she leased the entire building. So basically, I got this plaque right here in honor of Mrs. Elsie Neff. She was the reason the Ryman is what it is. Yes, Thomas Ryman made the building, donated money to it, and got it going, but Elsie made it what it was. Which actually, she is who booked. She ended up booking a lot of the major talent that came. It was because she was booking people like Katharine Hepburn, Charlie Chaplin, Harry Houdini, which we all know is famous people of the time period that she started in. But she was bringing all kinds of different people in. So really, she was bringing people that enjoyed that type of entertainment into the building, making money for the building, making money for Nashville. It was once built for religious meeting, but now it was a sanctuary for other and all kinds of events. So when she took over, she actually signed a deal with WSM, which was the Grand Ole Opry. That was in 1943. So we're moving on in the years. The Grand Ole Opry began 5 years after commercial radio was born in the United States. In 1925, the National Life and Accident Insurance Company was a radio station. And basically, when they done that, you had people listening in on the radio. But when Elsie Neff decided, hey, I want you guys to come, I think this would be a great opportunity, it was. It brought all kinds of entertainment. Genuinely, Minnie Pearl or Hank Williams, people of the time period, Bill Monroe, that brought people in, that people loved their music, so it brought more people to the center of Nashville, which then allowed them they got to have somewhere to eat, they got to have somewhere to stay, so it brought extra revenue just to the city. The Grand Ole Opry probably is what the Ryman's most known for, because honestly, I didn't know it was anything but the Grand Ole Opry. So this right here is a picture of me standing in front of two statues. It's actually, I believe, Minnie Pearl and maybe Bill Monroe, or there's another man in that picture, but I'm not sure. This is actually what the stage used to look like, and this right here is still available. Actually, the first picture on the slide was me and my husband standing on that notorious stage edge. So here it is. I actually brought another picture in it. Right here, this is where this was always at, so it made you feel like you got to stand where the stars have stood. It was kind of cool. The formative years of the Opry were spent on the Ryman stage. The music made those well-worn planks changed music history in Nashville forever. This is why, stuff like this is why the Ryman was known as the mother of country music, the mother church of country music. That's where it all started. Yeah, it was on the radio, yeah, but there really wasn't a place. And the Ryman offered that type of opportunity, which, as you know, as I said, it brought people together. Brought more revenue than we can imagine to Tennessee. I actually done a slide over the famous people who come into the picture. This right here is a jacket of Patsy Cline, and right here, the king himself, Elvis Presley. He's here. Bill Monroe. I put a slide about on a cold December night in 1945. Earl Scruggs made his debut with Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys. So really, bluegrass got to start there too. Lester Flatt, Chubby Wise on the fiddle, and Howard Watts on the bass. 1949, Hank Williams took the stage for the first time to perform Lovesick Blues. The crowd gave him such enthusiastic reception, he was called back for another 6 encores. The king himself, he was at the Opry in 1954. In 1956, you got Johnny Cash. Cash met June there, just people that Tennessee's really named for. You know, they are the faces. And without the Ryman, they wouldn't be. So this building is just so much to Nashville. It just brought so many people and made Nashville a known place. Without it, we probably wouldn't have had it. So, in 2010, there was actually the big flood. It damaged the Ryman. Opry's done left by this time. They left around 07. I think 03 to 07 they ended up leaving. So the Ryman kind of just sit. There was nothing really but a show here or there. But they knew it needed to be took back together because it was such a staple. And actually, after this flood, the stars came together and put funds in to make the Ryman legendary once again. This building affects our history because it put Nashville on the map. It hosted a variety of events, lectures. It broadened people's appeal to the public speakers. I mean, it gave opportunity. It was so impactful to the point of, if we didn't have the Ryman, would country music be known for Nashville? If we didn't have the Ryman, where would the people be that Thomas Ryman gave another chance by giving them a place to go to worship? And, you know, history would have been completely different. The Ryman actually was a staple of a place to Nashville and Tennessee. I actually checked out some books in our Vol State Library. How Nashville Became Music City, USA 50 Years Ago by Michael Kosser. It states in it, I'm going to quote it, the Ryman Auditorium, located in downtown Nashville, was the legendary home of the Grand Ole Opry for 3 decades, and its acoustics were and are revered. Stating that this building brought so many events that it allowed culture and revenue to enter the town of Nashville and state of Tennessee. Its acoustics were and are revered. So, it basically, if you see the architecture of the venue, it has, which at the time when it was built, it didn't have the second floor, but the second floor was added, and it just reverbs off. The acoustics, if you're a singer, which I am, you stand there and you can hear yourself. You have such a distance. I mean, it's not very far from the crowd. They could pretty much, you could spit on them kind of deal and they would feel it. The architecture of this building, it's a staple because it's not like any other building in Nashville. It's got a Gothic look. So it just, yeah, I mean, it's crazy how different, like, this is what I was saying. So you're standing here and you're singing, well, it's like church pews. So when you're sitting there and you see the church pews and you can literally just be 10 foot from the audience, it gives a different perception of when you go to big concerts like at Bridgestone or so, and you're sitting up on those nosebleed sections and you don't get the same experience as you would sitting at the Ryman. It also states in it, for Nashville, the first half of the 60s were filled with turmoil. Restaurants and schools were partially desegregated, and 2 white Nashville mayors worked with black organizations to change the city's future. This building was one of the reasons that they could do that. It brought harmony amongst people because this building brought music and entertainment that everyone could get along with. It just was huge for Nashville to have this. And then I have the National Suffrage Convention. This is still in those cases that had the clear, where you can look down and you can see they're from that time period. So it's like taking a step into the time period. It says Nashville, when relied upon the Ryman, large community events, benefits, services, school. I mean, it was just a place that meant so much to the people of Nashville, to the state of Tennessee. that it should not ever be forgotten. And like this slide right here, I dedicated to the Fixed Jubilee Singers because they were one of the most notorious events at the Ryman, because they were literally there were so many shows and there's so many generations of the Fixed Jubilee Singers, but they were the first African American type choir to grace its stage presence. That's a huge ordeal. I just thought it was important enough to put in there. And again, I reference the auditorium on how it is built, because the technologies and tools spoken at the location spoke to the time. It attracted, from Music Row, tourists and local music enthusiasts to contribute more revenue to the city and state. The architecture of the building of the stage and seating area allowed it to be like a big center dish where the acoustics reverberated off the walls and allowed a sweeter sound to the voice. You've got people like Vince Gill and Amy Grant that still get up on the stage and would rather sing at the Ryman than they would anywhere, because the sound is just, it's so much better than it would be with an arena, and you just get that real feel of presence of your audience to vocalist. In conclusion, Ryman would not, without Ryman, Nashville, would it be still known as the Music City? Probably not. So the Ryman really made Nashville Music City. Ryman was built for being a church, but it held so many different type of events that really it's an auditorium, but it's a sanctuary for everyone who could come together and be for something or someone as a group. It unified people. So I feel like it was the oldest and the biggest venue from 1800s to the 19th era. I really enjoyed getting to do this, because not only doing it for the history project, I enjoyed doing it because at one time my destiny, I thought, was to be in music. So seeing a little bit of the background of that was really neat. I went ahead and done the more excited, but we done the historic tour, and you start off, you go through and you see all these plaques, and they have the Hall of Rock, and I mean, it's just so much stuff that anybody that loves Nashville and loves what it stands for, it is worth a visit, because I did not know all that was there. So I want to thank my professor for allowing me the opportunity to actually make me go, and I very much enjoyed it. We were actually the only people from Tennessee there. There was people from Arizona and Idaho and all over the United States, and even I think there was one from a different country just coming to see the Ryman. So that goes to show, without the Ryman, would Nashville be what it is today? So thank you for listening, and I hope whoever does get to see this goes to the Ryman Auditorium. Thank you.